Welcome to another episode of Visibility Era, the podcast. Today we are interviewing our dear, beautiful co-founder, Bridget Aileen Siscko.
Hello, welcome. Thank you for having me. Excuse me.
Thank you for having me on my own podcast. So, we've been talking a lot about how we're preparing for maternity leave while Bridget is away, but I haven't really heard from her how she's personally preparing herself. I mean, we can talk about both, but how she's personally preparing herself mentally, physically, maybe even like financially if she's open to sharing, because these are things that we don't discuss as entrepreneurs, and it's really opened my eyes personally to oh, we need to actually prep for this stuff if we own our own business.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm definitely very willing to be very raw and real and open in today's conversation because this was, I had said to Eric, like, if I didn't run my own business, I probably would have had kids already. But I know, but because there are so many like more things to think about, I truly believe that that's like why we held off on doing this for a little bit of time. Because I was like, I need to feel like I have my ducks in a row. And of course, you'll never feel fully prepared, but like we actually need to feel a little bit prepared here.
I love that you said that because I've even thought about like we just got engaged and like even wedding wise, everyone's been asking, every single person I've spoken to has been like, so when's the wedding? Like, do you guys have anything in mind? Um, and we are very much like people that want to do like a party but want to have our ducks in a row. And I feel like sometimes it's delaying my life, which is the honest to God truth, you know?
It is. It is. And sometimes I think I have this like escapism part of me that's like, okay, if I just like quit everything I built and did and I just like got a job, like everything will be fine. I could be making 150 to $200,000 a year. I could have my like benefits, although my husband's are fantastic, like so I don't need that, but I have this like illusion in my mind of the grass could be greener on the other side. And but then I'm reminded of like why we do this and why we built this and how like both of us are about to go on a walk in the middle of the day after we record this today.
It is so nice to be able to do that.
It's
Like,
so nice.
it's so nice. Like, even my sister who works from home, like, she is basically chained to her desk. I mean, it's the same. Like, I know it's hard to conceptualize, but when people work from home, you are adopting the same culture as in the office. Like, you're expected to be in front of your computer from 9 to 5. She also works at an agency and she works with international clients. So there are days that she's working till 10, 11 at night. And to me, that sounds like a nightmare.
Oh my God. 10, 11. Like I'm in my REM sleep by that point, right?
Right. Like she makes the money, but there's never a grass is greener on the other side. It really just depends on what works for you and how you want to curate your life. So,
True.
yeah, I totally agree. So let's get into it. I've got some questions for you, ma'am.
Where should we start?
I would like to start with personal, like how you're preparing yourself mentally. I've never really said this out loud, but I have like a very big fear of childbirth. It scares me a lot.
Yeah. Did you ever watch a baby story on TLC growing up?
No. But I
Okay.
did watch like I didn't know I was pregnant and that freaked me out. Did you? I think that was TLC as well.
I think so. I do think so. I
Okay.
hear you though. Like I feel like I don't know if I said this to you personally, but prior to getting pregnant, I felt like I was getting initiated into motherhood like before it happened. I don't know how or why, but I just like felt this strong urge to start like doing some research and like educating myself. Um, and one of the first ways that I did that was like listening to people's birth stories of like what actually happens. Because all we see in the movies is some woman like lying on her back with her spread eagle, the doctor's right in there, which is like, what? This is such a private thing. And her screaming. And I was like, no, there's absolutely got to be more to this equation. So I feel like mentally, my first step of preparation was trying to eradicate and not allow a lot of like society's belief of pregnancy and birth like come into my mind because I didn't feel comfortable like I'm a big believer that we have to feel confident in whatever we do. And like for me, the idea of that did not make me feel comfortable. And like that would scare anyone, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. And when we start to ask the question or listen to the stories, like we realize that there's so many different ways that birth can happen and the experiences are really different. I've one of my friends, I think this is like my favorite story. She was like, Lydia, it is like the craziest ayahuasca journey. I can't even explain it. You get shot into a different dimension and you just do primal things. Like you are just like doing things, your body's doing things. It's smart and it knows what it's doing. It is the craziest experience. She was like, I can't explain it, but this is how I'm explaining it.
So wild. Yeah, and the primal stuff, I feel like, I don't know if you ever do this when you have your period, but I used to get like pretty bad period cramps before I like realized that my hormones were probably a little bit off. And I remember there would be like nights where I'd wake up, and you know it's the worst when you can't sleep and you have like really bad cramps.
Hmm.
And I would like go into another room and start like doing child's pose or like cat cow, and I would be like deep moaning on the exhale. And what I've learned, yeah, funny,
I love you.
peek into Bridget's world. Um, what I've learned a lot in like labor, especially as you get closer to like what they call transition, when like the head's about to crown out of your body, no big deal. Um, is a lot of those like guttural primal noises are like really, really helpful to relax the body. So making those like weird moaning, deep primal sounds are actually something that will prepare your body to like relax and like soften your jaw to release the pelvic floor and let the baby come out.
Wow, it's such a vulnerable thing.
So vulnerable. I can't believe this.
And like you have to just be like judgment free.
I think so. And like uninhibited, and I think that's where, so I'm happy to talk about like we're recording this in late October. I'm due in the beginning of January. I have a kind of goal of what I want things to look like. Like we've chosen a birth center, we've chosen a midwife, we've chosen a doula. Because I know personally, I mean, if I need to be in a hospital, I will absolutely be there if it's medically necessary. But I'm not comfortable with a bunch of people like watching this experience. And I've heard a lot of stories where they'll have like medical students who need the practice, but like for my first baby, I don't want to be the practice. Like, I don't know. Maybe that could be
Yeah.
like number four, where someone's like a little bit more comfortable. Um, because it is so vulnerable, and a lot of people's bodies will tense up when they feel like they're not safe. And it's just like an innate instinct that we have as humans.
For sure. Are we gonna have four babies in Visibility on Purpose?
Absolutely. Welcome the children. Welcome the children. I mean, I think that's a whole other
Yeah.
dynamic of this too. Like, you and I figuring out there is in a couple months going to be someone else like in the background of this picture or like on my body and strapped to me.
Mhm.
And yeah, like how can they be part of it too? And we kind of get to write our own story with
Yeah.
it, which is very exciting. And this is going back to like the first part of the conversation. We get to create this. If we were in a
Yeah.
different environment, like we would be subjected to the rules of that culture. We get to make our own.
Yeah. You know, my sister and my brother both had their kids this past year, and each one of them, they're only 3 weeks apart, so they're a little over one at this point. And I'm so grateful that I got to experience that before you are having a baby because I am so intimately understanding of that process. I came home like every single month this past year. So I could be there for my sister, I could be there for my brother, I could be there for their christenings, like their first birthdays. Like, I don't want to miss any of that. But what I've seen is like, of course, like we have friends and I have very close friends that have kids, but when it's your family, it's different. They're way more vulnerable with you, even if it's your best friend. Like you are just like, nobody cares. And also you can be like, you can be like honest with your family, like whatever, you know? So I just saw very different experiences being there from the beginning. And I am like, I don't even know if I have baby fever or like what, but it's just, I'm so excited for you and I'm excited for us and to have like a baby with us. Like last week, I was talking to him and I'm like, oh my God, I hope I do a good job when you're away. Like, I want to do our baby right. It's just such a different experience to like have that. And I think if I didn't have my sister and brother's kids, this past year, I don't know if I would have understood on the same level.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And I don't know if it's like the Leo in me or like the first child kind of syndrome, but I feel like I always go first. Like I don't actually have many super, super, super close friends that I have kids. I have one cousin with a kid who is the first, and like our whole family between Eric and my husband and I, it's like immediate family. This is the first grandkid. So that has definitely been interesting, but I think it might be helpful for me because now I don't have someone else's experience um, dictating like what is true. And I feel like you and I talk about this all the time, but it's like kind of taking in the information and the discerning like what is right and true for me. And I know in the beginning, there was like family members like talking about traumatic birth experiences, and I didn't mean to be like rude, but I was like, I'm not welcoming those conversations right now. Like that's not
Yeah.
when you're in. Right. Like I think being pregnant, you've never done this before. There's a little bit of like that fear that could come in. So I know when I'm in that state, we're like highly penetratable by thoughts, beliefs, people's stories. And I was very um yeah, cautious of what I allowed into my little vortex because
Yeah.
I know myself. I just want to be in a space of feeling supported. And I will do a lot of research. So I kind of start to discern like, okay, that feels really good for me, or that doesn't
Mhm.
seem like it's going to be what interests me.
Yeah, and I think it comes back to the know thyself kind of thing of like some people like to do all the research. They want the good, the bad, the ugly, and then they're like, okay, well, I feel prepared in that sense. Where if you're a person that you know maybe some of the like difficult stories to hear, the challenging stories to hear would actually be and create a negative impact on you, there's no reason to listen to them. And you have the support, you have the care, you know that there's like, this is the ideal plan, but if you need to pivot, you will, and you're going to be supported no matter what. So sometimes it's like those stories that are darker or whatever, it's like you don't even need it to be there. Just know that you are supported and you can trust yourself and your body and your decisions.
Yeah, and I think that's where like reading I enjoyed more so reading about the process of labor and like what could happen from more of like a factual standpoint versus like a story charged with emotions. I think
Mhm.
that's where I get to, I'm such a like, I do feel people's experiences, and I like the facts. Like, I don't mind knowing that, I could be mid-labor and there could be like a shoulder dystocia where the shoulder is kind of like stuck in my pelvis and struggling to get out. Or, if the heartbeat is like dropping really, like I do like to know the medical process of like what could happen so I could be aware, but I don't necessarily need someone's like really charged story behind it,
Mhm.
especially if they haven't been able to look at the bright side of it. I don't know if this sounds rough.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't at all. I'm the same way. I'm also somebody who um can kind of like spiral. So if I know that and I know that I'm a person that can spiral, like why would I expose myself to hearing those things?
Yeah, like I don't watch scary movies for a reason.
Me neither.
Eric's like, do you want to? I was like, what do you want to do for Halloween? He's like, watch. He's joking. He's like, do you want to watch Scream? I was like, absolutely not. I want to watch Halloween Town.
Wait, I'm cracking up because last night I was like, ooh, I would love to watch something like spooky, but like spooky to me is like spooky with training wheels on. So I'm
Like
like, oh,
Hocus
maybe like a
Pocus.
cute little witch spin. Oh yeah, we've already watched Hocus Pocus. I watched Practical Magic. That's like as scary as I'm getting this season. I
So
know,
fun.
right? And Gilmore Girls,
Of
obviously.
course.
Yeah,
Not
yeah.
scary, but necessary.
Yeah, not scary, but necessary, very fall vibes. So, can you tell us like what you've been doing to prepare yourself in terms of health? You are a holistic person. I love the way that you just like approach life with your holistic ways. It's just funny because I feel like I'm one step behind you. Like you're like, oh yeah, I've already been doing this. And so I think it's really helpful to hear like how you can prepare yourself naturally for childbirth and just like, feel your best self.
Yeah. So I'll like touch upon like the mental aspects really quickly, then I'll go into the physical. So, I bought Ina May's Guide to Childbirth. It's a book, and I highly recommend it if you want to hear stories, but also understand like physiological birth and like what's actually happening in the process. Highly recommend that book. We have been listening to birth podcasts and birth stories for the last 2 years. I like forced Eric to listen to them on like long car rides. I was like, how crazy is this? And I would actually like show him pictures of like women giving birth because I think that we're so disconnected from this natural process. So I literally wanted to like drill it in his head, like, this is what you might see, and just like prepare yourself. So doing those kind of things. We also bought a birth course. And our midwives and doula have like classes that we've been going to. So, like, from the preparedness side, I feel pretty as prepared as I can be. And last piece on that kind of preparation, I'm really hoping that my distance running races help me in this. Like the endurance races that I've done, I'm really, really hoping that I can bring that same philosophy into birth. Like when you're 14 hours into something, which I have been before, and you're definitely experiencing something, I want to be able to like bring that same thing into the actual birth. So that's like the mental preparedness side of things. Physically, yeah. Gosh, where to even start? I've been pretty active throughout this whole entire time, although it has been very humbling to see like my body 1000% change, which it should. I've gained weight, right? My boobs are like 3 sizes larger, which is wild. In case anyone was wondering.
In case you can't see through the screen,
They probably can't
notice.
because I'm like cut off here. They probably
Yeah,
can't.
always.
No one knows. So I've still been really active. Walking daily has been a big thing, and I've been really doing a lot of research on like lengthening the pelvic floor and the 3 levels of the pelvis. There's like the mid pelvis, like the inlet. There's all these things. So basically to like help open up the body for birth. So that's been really interesting to just like learn about and add into my routine. I still practice yoga and teach. So I think that's supportive. And then I've still been weight training, but my strength has gone down. So that's been interesting. Like I used to be able to do like, a 20-pound kettle or whatever it's called, dumbbell. What's this called? Biceps. What's
Yeah.
this? You know?
Oh my God, you're asking the wrong person, Bridget. I literally went to F45 like 4 times a week for 6 months, and I did not adopt any of the terminology. I'd be like, this thing, I learned what a kettlebell was like month 4, and I was using them like a lot.
I love that. I love
Yeah, I
that.
just was like watching, and I was like, I do with this.
Yes, receive. Tell me what to do.
Yeah.
I used dumbbell curls, we can say.
Okay,
And
curls. Yes.
weight has had to reduce. I've also like shifted things away from doing it laying down on my back. Like you would do things like chest press, laying flat on a bench. That's not really recommended anymore. So just like kind of modifying my workouts. And the biggest thing that I would say changed physically is I have not been running. I tried like early on in the first trimester, and I just like didn't feel that good. So I'm a person who like listens to my body and has to put my ego aside a little bit. So that ended pretty quickly. But I would say that's like the physical part. And then food and nutrition wise, I've been prioritizing protein, like vitamin C, making sure I have like magnesium, and I like to take those like element powders, like the electrolyte powders. A lot of people get like intense leg cramps, but usually all these things are a sign of some sort of deficiency. So it's like
Mm.
very interesting to kind of trace your cravings and notice where there could be a little bit of a like deficiency. And I think that could be supportive to just like understanding what you're craving and like why you might be craving it.
Isn't it a thing that like if you have some sort of deficiency in pregnancy, it like really presents itself?
I don't know. I haven't had that many like crazy cravings, but this is also my first pregnancy, so I'm like, I don't want to jinx myself is how I felt. I'm
No, no,
like,
no. I mean, like, like if you are, I don't know, iron deficient, it like really becomes a thing when you're pregnant or like whatever. So just being like very hyper aware of like how your body is and then extra nourishing yourself during that time.
Yeah, definitely. And I've also been seeing a chiropractor who like is specializes in the Webster technique
Oh
and
yeah.
prenatal chiropractic. And one of the things that she talked to me early on about was like one of the challenges you can have in your pregnancy is if your waters break before they're meant to. So you could like rupture the waters, and the way that you strengthen that like amniotic sac that the baby's like floating in is through vitamin C and protein. And like making sure you
Oh
get enough of
wow.
those things. And you usually need more protein in pregnancy than like your usual life. So I've been just like supplementing with a vitamin C supplement that I have, and even supplementing with just like protein if I need it in a powder form.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
That's
really
so
interesting.
interesting. So wait, what is that technique that you were talking about that the chiropractor does?
Called the Webster technique. So if you're like pregnant, you'd want to find a chiropractor who's trained in that technique. It's not like I think it has something to do with the ability to, you want the baby to be in the optimal position for birth, where it's head down and the feet are up and it's facing a certain side, which makes for like usually quote unquote a more seamless labor, we can say. So the chiropractors who understand this technique are basically trying to facilitate that within the body as well.
Oh, wow. So interesting. Yeah, you've said it to me before, and I'm like, I don't know what that is, but it sounds like it's good.
I've just like, yeah, I don't know. I'm such a person who like really loves the things I dive into and study. Like I've done this with Ayurveda and
Oh,
yoga
yeah.
and Kundalini, and now I'm on my like birth season.
Yeah, I love it. You're like a doctor at this point. I will be consulting you when my time comes.
You're definitely welcome to ask questions.
Thank you. So, transitioning into like goals, what were your maybe life goals, business goals during this time? Was there anything humbling, anything that you're preparing for? Like, what was that? Has it changed throughout the past like few months?
It's a really good question. I think I can take it back to my husband and I were trying for a couple of months to get pregnant and it wasn't happening. And then we were like, you know what? Let's pause anyway. I'm self-employed. He has a very stable and good job. However, both of us knew that we would not get any like paid maternity or paternity leave. And we had this goal of having like, I think it was $50,000 saved in an account before that happened. And we were like, you know what? Let's just like wait. Let's like do one more Europe trip, naturally. Let's do another Europe trip and like let's just wait until we have this number, which we think is important in our mind. And of course, that's the month where I was pregnant, but which is like, haha, cosmic haha. But yeah, we did have some of these like goals in mind of what we wanted. Now, 50,000 is not really a necessary number for us, but it just felt like comfortable, I would say. And we were
Yeah.
like, okay, we could just like have this. We don't need to think about anything, yada yada. So yeah, we did have some financial goals going into this because I knew I wanted to take a little bit of time off, and he knew he would want to take time off, but we would need to obviously be able to pay our mortgage and like if there was a car payment or insurance, just like basic living necessities. And I feel like you and I have been on deep like financial journeys and you've talked about it. Maybe that's what I should interview you about.
Oh my God, my financial journey, maybe in a few months. But thank you. I can share what I know.
Exactly. It's just about sharing what you do know. And prior to all of this, like Eric and I sat down and looked at what are our fixed expenses on a monthly basis, aka what does it cost us to live? Like how much
Mm.
money do we actually need every single month coming in to make sure that we can pay just basic necessities? And then we went into like variable costs, which would be like us eating out and just looking at our finances, I think was a really important exercise. And even I think it was 2 years prior to getting pregnant, I did a like financial literacy kind of course for self-employed people and specifically around like maternity leave and understanding finances and leaves of absence. I think that was really helpful too.
Wow, that is really helpful.
It's
And
good.
so when you were preparing, when you like transitioned from realizing that you were pregnant and needed to actually like I guess, expedite your process. What did you guys decide to do? I think it's really interesting to sit down and talk to your partner. And then also, like me and you had to have discussions too. So, what did that kind of look like?
Yeah, first I want to be very honest with everyone. I freaked the F out when I found out I was pregnant because I felt like I wasn't ready now. Because I had then, if I decide in my mind like something's happening and I had decided that we were gonna wait now, which is why I was surprised when I
Yeah.
found out I was pregnant. So I was in full on freak out and panic mode. I really was in denial, honestly, in the beginning phases, which that was an interesting experience because obviously I was kind of holding duality. It was so much excitement and like knowing that's what we were praying for. Like I would cry if I got a negative test. You know what I mean? Like it was sad, it was upsetting. And yet I was here in this moment being like, fuck, like, oh no, crap. So I do have a therapist, so that was really helpful to like work through. And I have a really supportive partner and just like incredible friends and family and you in my life. So I was able to kind of work through all those thoughts. But on the preparedness lens, one thing that we also did was like looking at the finances and being like, okay, we need to be setting aside this amount of money like every single month to just like feel good. So we didn't eat out as much. Like we would instead get like takeout, which cost like, I don't know, $50 less, but we were able to then save what, 200 a month and just like doing little things to just kind of pool money into that separate account. And one thing you and I talk about a lot is like money is kind of fun when you are playing with it. I don't know if that makes sense.
So true. I like re speaking of, I like reignited my interest in money. I want to say like 3 weeks ago. And I have been having so much fun playing around with it. I'm like, ooh, this will go here and this will move
Hmm.
here. And
Hmm.
like it becomes less scary when you make a plan.
Yes. So
Yeah.
true.
What was your like plan process like? So you said that you guys like took a look at everything. You decided to like take a look at your monthly expenses and start saving. So did you use like spreadsheets? Like what for somebody who maybe is listening and they're like, "Oh, I really want to like kind of replicate this preparation." How did that what did that look like? And also, did you have any like resistance with Eric or like just saying like it's hard talking about finances and like I'm a spreadsheet person, so like that's what I would do, but I don't know if like, Spencer would be like, "Oh, let me update the spreadsheet."
We did use a spreadsheet in the beginning to like
Okay.
do all the math of like the fixed and just like variable to see like what we were actually spending on a monthly basis. But after that, we basically kind of like divided and conquered where Eric was going to be in charge of more of the household, um, kind of fixed costs, and I was going to be in charge of adding to our fund. So like anything additional goes to that fund pretty much right away. And I've been implementing like that profit first thing in business, methodology in business for a little while, where you basically your money comes into one account and then you're going to allocate to like a tax fund, you're going to allocate to an expense fund, you're going to allocate to like a profit fund. So just kind of seeing the money and how I can work with it has been really, really helpful, and making sure things are just like paid for. We haven't been super extravagant in buying and purchasing, so we did look at our
Yeah.
spending habits because we would absolutely be those people who would go to, okay, me, go to Home Goods or Target on a Saturday night and just like redo an entire bedroom, because it
Mhm.
was so necessary to do that. So just kind of being honest with ourselves and where we're at and like what our priorities were. I think that's what money comes down to in preparation. It's like, what are your priorities? We knew we had a priority of saving, so we were just gonna like focus all of our attention on that priority.
Yeah, I love that. And so I guess we'll pivot to us and
Yes.
how we've been preparing. I feel like we low key started preparing like last year, not even knowing that this was going to happen
Yeah.
and like transitioned our business model. So I'm sure our longtime listeners will remember this. But we used to only do like launches and we never had anything evergreen, and you couldn't work with us or purchase with us unless we were launching something. Then we transition into a different model where we now have our mastermind, which is a year-long membership, basically. But you get the course with us, and then we're doing like biweekly calls and challenges and all that stuff. And then we have our peer assistant certification. So all of our business now is more catered towards digital products
Yeah.
than it is like a live course model, which is has been an interesting transition for us.
It has. Yeah, especially because we really do like that type of interaction with people. So in shifting our PR and visibility mastermind, the structure of that around, we were like, how can we still maintain that level of support for our clients while still kind of setting ourselves up for these potential life changes? And of course, there's two of us, which does really support. It would be an interesting thing, like if we were pregnant at the same time and what that would potentially look like. We haven't even thought about that. What would we do?
No, you never know. It might happen in the future.
You never know. You really never know. But this is where we could like lean on people that we trust or people within our community to step up and facilitate some of the things. So
Right.
I think we do have options. But yeah, that was a different shift for us. But we also had to kind of let go of, okay, I don't want to say this like an easier win. That's not what I mean by this, but selling some of our like one-on-one sessions usually was just like something we didn't have to put thought into. We'd just be like, okay, like we're running like a little deal where we're going to do 10 sessions and we're going to sell them to people until we're done filling those spots. But in thinking about the longevity of our business, like we had to start to think about the one-off sessions were not as
Yeah.
supportive of like where we want to go, even though we love doing those.
Yeah. And another, I think, realization of shifting this model is actually looking at our numbers and realizing that we're doing great compared to last year. It's just spread out as opposed to like a lump sum in the spring and a lump sum in the fall, which is kind of like how we were doing things. We were kind of like launching programs in like either halves or quarters of the year. And it felt like a lot because we had like a lot coming in at once, but now it's more spread out amounts, and we have to constantly be looking at our monthly numbers and being like, oh, we did good last month, like we like like this was great last month. And I think it's a very big mindset shift too, moving out of that, like, I guess, like coachy model and into more of like a education company model, which is what we want our place to be.
And it's funny
So
because I think we've spent a lot of this year also educating on PR and why it's a long-term sustainable strategy. And we have also like practicing what you're preaching, like we need to taste our own medicine. That's what this is. So while it might seem or feel like slower in some aspects, it's really not because there's just revenue continuously coming in. It's just not in these like huge bursts that we were used to. But I know you and I have talked about this privately. Like we feel way less stressed. Like our bodies, our nervous systems.
like so much less stressed. And we both are people that like we were joking about this past week, but like we are type A for certain things and type B for others. And I think our type A comes out in business and preparedness. Like we like to know where the finances are going. We like to know what our structures are. We like to have even just like a structure for a call. Like beforehand, Bridget will be like, okay, so I made a full PowerPoint on what we're talking about today. And I'm like, wow, really? Like, but otherwise, but like on the contrary, I've also done that before too and been like, okay, here's the outline of what I want to discuss today. So it's funny in that we love that type of preparedness, but then when it comes to other things, we're like pretty like relaxed people that like to just have fun, like, and just whatever. So it's been interesting trying to bring our type B into our business, I feel like.
Yeah, so interesting. Do we want to talk a little bit about like our plan for
Yeah.
this maternity leave? And I don't know if you feel okay to share any of like your fears, but I'm fine sharing my fears.
Yeah. Share yours. I'll share mine.
So one of my fears around this is I tend to be like an all or nothing person. So I'm like, what if I love being a mom so much that I never want to have a business again? And I say that to like Eric too, and he's like, Bridget, you literally, someone will tell you what they are interested in, and you're gonna be like, have you ever thought about like developing some sort of app to help people with that? I'm like, okay, I guess it's just a natural thing. So but that is one of my fears. I'm like, what if I like this so much that I don't even want my quote unquote old life to be there? Or I think another one is, yeah, what's my body gonna feel like? What if I struggle with like postpartum? Just like some of those fears definitely have come in for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And you never know what's going to happen on the other side. So I think like probably the fear of the unknown is
Yeah.
it's like this weird like what's going to happen, which we don't
Hmm.
know. Yeah.
Hmm. We
Yeah.
really don't know.
So I think my biggest fear is not doing a good job while you're gone. Which is funny. It's funny, but it's true. Like I want to make us proud. And so yeah, I want to make us
It's
proud
our
and I
business family, you
it's
know?
our business family. I want to make us proud. I want to make sure that I'm supporting our clients. I want to make sure that I'm supporting us. We've built and spent so much time on visibility on purpose, and we did that because we love what we do and we can see the long term of this company. And so it's always been me and Bridget. So I'm like, oh my God, what if I can't do it when she's gone? But she's still going to be here in spirit. And I've got all the videos and all the things and it'll be fine. But that is a little mini fear of like, what if I don't make us money? What if I don't know. What if like something happens where it goes to shit and it's my fault?
Mm-hmm. And it's so funny because Lydia and I have talked about this prior to this conversation, and fears are so like interesting because
Hmm.
that's not my fear for her. Like, I don't have any fears for her doing this because I trust her like 1000%. I honestly just feel such extreme gratitude that this is even a potential, like that I have someone to also like support me and keep our ship running. And because I know like how much she cares about this too, I know everything is going to be fine. And yeah, it'll be interesting like how much involvement I still want during my like little maternity leave because I've shared with Lydia like I don't know if I want to be completely disconnected from what we do and what we've built. And I
Hmm.
think this is where we can like I'm saying this now prior to, but we should listen to this I'll listen to this episode after. But like in this moment, I feel that I want the baby to like be part of everything. Like I could see us hosting a call and the baby being here with us. And I think one thing that might show people is like this is possible for them and they can like have families. Because I think for a lot of women entrepreneurs who are like
Hmm.
solopreneurs, a lot of our clients, it's their business and they might have like an assistant, but they might have that fear of like, am I not going to be able to be a mother because I like can't show up for this? I don't know. It's making me emotional. Do you
Me
think people think
too.
about this?
Me too. I'm like, don't cry, Lydia. No one can tell that your eyes are misty. It's fine on the video. But yeah, one of my clients just had a call with her team. I also didn't know how big our team was. Like I was like, "Oh, this is kind of cool." So me and my assistant were both her publicists. And then she has a personal assistant. She has two social media girls and somebody that runs her other business like on the call together. And so she wanted everybody to meet. So if like there was any overlap, we could just feel comfortable like emailing that person, which is honestly great because every once in a while, like I'll get an inquiry for her Airbnb property and it makes like no sense for me to reach out to her, for her to reach out to the Airbnb, person that owns that schedule. So anyway, she had her daughter on the call with us. And it was so cute. I mean, she was being so good and she was just like coloring. She asked a question here and there, but like that's life. We work from home and our kids sometimes don't have school because there's holidays. And I think there was a Jewish holiday this week and she was off. But anyway, all this to say, like, sometimes life happens and we need to like have our kids with us or something. And I love that we get to create a new environment where, like, if we need to, we can just have our kids as a part of it instead of like the there's options. Like, I think everybody kind of does the daycare thing, and you can do the daycare thing. And I think there's actually a lot of benefits for daycare, just from what I've seen with the kids, like for mental health for parents and then also kids they get to like learn from other kids, which is interesting. Like even like 1 year old, my 1 year old niece and nephew, they'll like come home with new things that they learned. They're teaching them all the kids like sign language right now. So
Aw,
do you know this?
no.
Oh.
Wait, like
Bridget,
all kids? Like this is
all kids, they teach
oh
them sign language because their motor skills, like it's better for them to sign than to speak. They know what you're saying. So like
yeah.
when you're done with food, instead of saying like all done and like, are you all done? And like hearing them be like, yes, they'll do this, all done. So you like
Wow.
have the hands. So now all the kids, like they'll say that to them in daycare. They go, all done. And then they'll pick up their hands and tell you like that they're all done. But now my little nephew is starting to say all done and like learned it in school. So they're like, all done. He goes, I done. And I'm like, oh my God.
That's so cute. I've also heard that like daycare and the social interaction can help with food if they're like finicky eaters to be
Yeah.
around other kids who are like eating something different. That can really help. And even like, yeah, what you're saying, like verbal skills can be
Yeah,
really
verbal
supportive.
skills and like just it's funny like now they're not afraid of other kids or like really
Mhm.
open to other kids. So like the other day my friend came over with her baby and her 3-year-old and then she was also I was watching my niece and she just started walking and she was so intrigued by the baby, was like running up to her, wanting to look at her. She also really likes dolls, so I think she like thought it was an I thought like the newborn was a doll. But it was
Of
just
course.
interesting. It was interesting because she wasn't afraid to like run around with the 3-year-old and then also like walk up to the 1-year-old whereas like sometimes kids can be a little timid at the beginning. So I see like benefits of both sides, obviously. There's benefits to everything. But all this to say, rounded about, there are options. There are things that we can do. If you want to be home with your kids and spend more time with them, you should be able to. And so we're going to figure that out.
We're gonna figure it out. I also think I might be like more efficient, right?
With
Like
the,
if I know, yeah, with the kid, right? It's like if I
yeah.
know I have childcare on Wednesdays from 9 to 2,
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to knock it out. Like there will be no dilly-dallying. There will be no scrolling. There will be no intermittent trips down to the fridge to get more Spindrift. Like I'm just gonna knock it out
Oh,
as she drinks the Spindrift.
excuse me. No, this is so true. I've talked to a few moms where they're like, oh, yeah, you only have these windows to do things. So you are like warp speed, like hyper speed on your work and so efficient. And I think about this all the time because, like, I will sit here from 8 or 9 until 5 or 6 at night every single day as if I'm in a corporate setting. Like, and I'm like, Lydia, come on. Like, we can do like a half day on Wednesdays. Like, am I okay? But what was interesting when we were on our road trip, I was able to get everything done that I needed to. And I only worked for a few hours each day. And I'm like,
Isn't that interesting? You're like, how much time do I actually need to finish these things? And how much time do I screw around?
maybe we should do a challenge for ourselves.
This could be fun.
Wait, I think we should do it and see what
This might be a
happens.
good like shift into our changing schedule anyway.
Yeah.
Like
Wait, this is a
imagine we
great.
only had a certain amount of time to do things.
Yeah. We'll talk about this. Others, feel free to join us. But Bridget, thank you so much for being vulnerable today and sharing how you've been preparing and what it kind of looks like. I'm learning so much. So I feel grateful to be on this journey with you because, yeah, I mean, as you say, you do it first so others don't have to. Thank you.
Geez Louise. Never gets dull. Yeah, and if anyone has any like of their favorite tips and stuff that they've learned in their own motherhood, entrepreneurship, pregnancy journey, definitely send them our way. We're everything at Visibility on Purpose on all corners of the internet. So send us a message, and we really hope that this like style of video also resonates with you today.
I love these types of videos personally. So I'll be
Yeah.
watching this again. Thank you, everyone, for listening to another episode of Visibility Era, the podcast.